Everything you need to know about Section 508. Section 508 requires all U.S. federal agencies to make the ICT, technology, website, online training, etc. they create, maintain and manage accessible and usable by persons with disabilities, as it is accessible by employees without disabilities. The U.S. Access Board established it and implemented the law providing the accessibility requirements. Section 508 holds great importance as it made ICT accessible to people with disabilities, regardless of whether they are federal employees or not. Here's our detailed explanation of everything you need to know about Section 508 to provide you with useful insights into it and make you understand its importance. What is Section 508? Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act is a law that requires federal agencies to make any ICT developed, gathered, maintained, or used by them accessible to people with disabilities, including employees and the public. Version 2.0 of the Web Content Accessibility Standards, WCAG, comes under Section 508 and establishes requirements for designers and developers. In compliance with this section, all federal departments try to make their websites accessible to people with visual, hearing, motor and cognitive disabilities. The accessibility of their content is a constant work in which the agencies seek solutions to improve their sites by providing regular training to the employees who create their documents, write their content and build the functionality of their websites. As reflected in its objectives, Section 508 does not only deal with the accessibility of web pages and applications. It also deals with the software and, therefore, with authoring tools and browsers. On the W3C website, World Wide Web Consortium, you can find a comparative study of the Section 508 standards and the requirements and priorities of the User Agent Accessibility Guidelines 1.0, UAAG, which will be of interest to all developers. Although it is debated whether Section 508 applies to state governments, there are several instances where the law applies, and states must comply. For example, many states have enacted their own Mini 508 laws tweaking the requirements. Historical background. Although Section 508 enforcement is an explicit statutory obligation for federal agencies on all information they maintain, the emphasis is on newly acquired ICT. Awards procured after June 25, 2001, are subject to Section 508 since this category is enforceable by legal action. It was originally introduced as an amendment to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 in 1986 to deal with electronics and information technology, considering the domain's growth. But the original Section 508 had proven ineffective, mainly due to the shortcomings in the enforcement mechanisms. In 1997, the Federal Electronic and Information Technology Accessibility and Compliance Act was proposed to correct those shortcomings, and the revised act was enacted in 1998 as the new Section 508. In 2017, Section 508 refresh came into effect, later updated in 2018 to reinstate access provisions and essentially align web elements with the W3C's WCAG 2.0 AA criteria. Section 508 Technical Standards. The technical standards include accessible alternatives with software applications and operating systems, web-based internet and intranet information and applications, telecommunications products, videos or multimedia products, autonomous and closed products, desktops and laptops. The law also requires that web content be made accessible, and by January 18, 2018, organizations must also meet WCAG 2.0 Level A and Level AA success criteria. For closed captioning, Section 508 only requires that federal communications be accessible. However, due to each state's assistive technology law and accessibility policies, state governments may need to comply with Section 508, which means they should provide reasonable accommodations to people with disabilities throughout their communication efforts, including online video. Section 508, a solution to inaccessibility due to disabilities. Some disabilities may hinder navigation and access to digital information, including visual, hearing, motor and cognitive impairment. Section 508 requires government agencies to develop means to respect web accessibility to all individuals with disabilities. They have different ways and techniques to make their website content accessible and meet Section 508 requirements. Some of the techniques include designing websites in a way that they are accessible by screen readers, turning text into speech to make it accessible to visually impaired people. Alt text with videos so the visually impaired users can interpret the content of the videos through screen reader software. Inserting captions for videos and audios, solving the issue for people with hearing impairment. Making websites keyboard accessible to make interaction easier for people with motor disabilities. Leaving blank spaces on websites to make them understandable for people with cognitive disabilities. Using appropriate color contrast and legible fonts to make navigation easier for people with color blindness. Who must comply with Section 508? Article 508 applies to the federal government, state governments, through the Mini 508s. States receiving federal funding by the Assistive Technology Act *. Under this act, states failing to comply with Section 508 will be denied financing. The law requires that an alternative and accessible technological method be provided to employees with disabilities and public members. Section 508 exempts private websites from complying unless they receive federal funds or they are in contract with a federal agency. It also applies exemptions to the agencies where Section 508 requirements would result in an undue hardship. However, they are still required to provide an alternative method to make information accessible to all. How federal agencies support and maintain the accessibility of their content. Federal agencies take the following steps to ensure the accessibility of their ICT. They include content accessibility in their internal policies. They generally require their employees to post documents, PDF, with accessible content. They use formal methods in the construction of their websites to ensure the quality of content accessibility. They must conduct regular website audits to ensure they comply with Section 508 standards. They provide ongoing training to their staff on content accessibility. They use plain language in their content. They integrate content accessibility into their hiring practices. Conclusion. We hope the information has left you with some useful insights into the importance of Section 508 and how it has changed the way digital content is created and used today. It may seem to be a complex legislation piece, but it is one of the most visible online accessibility regulations in the U.S. At the Blind Muse Foundation, we believe that everyone deserves equal access to the digital world. That's why we are dedicated to educating individuals and organizations about the importance of Section 508 compliance and disability awareness. Our programs have already made a significant impact, but there is still so much more to do. With your support, we can expand our reach and create a more inclusive digital community for everyone. Your donation will directly fund our educational initiatives and advocacy efforts, ensuring that no one is left behind in the digital age. Join us in our mission to build a more accessible world. Together, we can make a difference. www.blindmuse.org